Hi everyone. I hope you are doing great. And this is a very night. We are doing a webinar in the night because we are having some guest with us who is he's from the USA and very well known as well. So can anyone guess from the audience who are with us today? If you want to guess, you can comment on the section. So can we will invite them on the screen after that. I'm waiting for the comments for the next 10 seconds. If you want to comment it, please comment it and we will definitely invite him in the screen. So, okay, so let's don't waste our time. We are having a best speaker and best research assistant with us from the Rutgers University, as well as he is the space coach at AFWERX, as well as he is the one of the project lead from the India at NASA Suits, one and only Sanjeet Singh. Welcome, Sanjeet Singh, and I'm very happy to share the screen right now with you and this platform. And thank you so much for coming and sharing a knowledge with the students today on introduction to mixed reality.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. All right, I'll start sharing my screen. All right, let me know if you can see, and then we're good to go. All right,
Yes, now it's visible.
perfect. All right, from beginning. All right, everybody. It's really nice to meet you all. I'm honored to be here. I'm going to be giving a talk on the introduction to mixed reality. So, a little bit about myself. As mentioned, I'm a student from Rutgers University. I'm also a hacker. I'm really a big fan of the whole hackathon community. I love to innovate, exchange ideas, build products that can really change the world. As a little bit mentioned, I was a project team lead for NASA Suits, space coach for AFWERX, which is actually one of the largest Air Force and defense and space conferences in the nation. I'm also a research assistant for Rutgers University at the Intelligent Visual Interface Lab, working on AI techniques for a multi agent soccer simulation, and a mixed reality developer for a gaming startup known as Mplex. And before all of this, I was also formerly a co founder and vice president of a biotech startup known as XBoost, where we were developing robotic exoskeleton devices and combining it VR, AR technologies to develop, you can say Iron Man, but for physical therapeutics needs, specifically for stroke patients. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we were not able to secure funds. My overall goal is I want to build the future of VR, AR, robotics, brain computer interfaces, virtual worlds, artificial intelligence, humanoid robots, and really more cutting edge technologies. There's just so much stuff out there that I love to explore. And those of you who are interested in connecting, especially after this session, you can reach me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. I'm always happy to connect with new people and mentor you whatever way I can. Right? So let's start. So, first of all, let's start with the question: what is virtual and augmented reality? So, virtual reality is more or less, you can say, a 3D generated computer environment through a headset. So, you're in a computer simulation, and virtual reality is more like you feel like you're actually in that simulation, in that game world environment. It's more or less like tricking your mind into believing you're actually there. That's mainly the best way to put virtual reality is game simulation in a world that looks very real. Augmented reality, the way I like to perceive it, is more like Iron Man because you're bringing the whole virtual world and overlaying it to the real world, but as holograms. So it's a 3D generated computer environment where you're projecting holograms from a virtual world and overlaying it to a real world environment where you can actually interact with these virtual images. All right, so the early days of mixed reality. So, believe it or not, this actually has been around from 1950s to 1960s from the early days, and actually it was pioneered by a bunch of academic researchers who I'll go a little bit about. So, one of the early pioneers of computer graphics is Dr. Ivan Sutherland. Ivan Sutherland is basically he's known as the father of computer graphics. His work actually first started with Sketchpad. It was a graphical modeling software that people could use for designing GUI interfaces. artwork design and so much more technical work. This had really big potential that eventually his work, he decided, okay, I can interact with graphical images, but now I want to be able to feel like I'm part of these images and part of this world. So eventually his work with computer graphics led to the very first virtual reality headset we know today as the Sword of Damocles, which back in the days was a huge thing because one, resources were limited. It's also pretty expensive to produce a lot of stuff like that. And mainly it was academic researchers who had most of these resources. So Sword of Damocles, it was a really cool VR headset. It was very immersive. Resolutions were great, but differences was tracking wasn't as mature and immersive as we know today. Plus, VR back then wasn't really too much utilized in the market as it is right now. Dr. Tom Furness, he's actually one of my favorite. He's actually a professor still at the University of Washington in Seattle. He's very well known as, you can say, the grandfather of virtual reality. His work actually started with the Wright-Patterson Armstrong Air Force Research Lab, where he was working on cockpit technologies for aircraft. So imagine people in the military have to, like, when they go into the Air Force, they put on helmets. A lot of these helmets back then, they didn't really have so much informatics displays. Like, for example, when you're flying a cockpit, you want to be able to simultaneously know where you're flying, be able to interact just with the buttons, be able to know what you can see through the helmet. So he decided, like, you know what? Why not be able to do all this simultaneously through visual informatics displays? His work eventually leads to a whole super cockpit program through retinal displays of helmet. Eventually, a lot of this work led to virtual images, which now we know as virtual augmented reality. So 23 years, he worked for the Department of Defense inventing new cockpit technologies for displays, and eventually decided, okay, I I did it all in the military. Now it's time to bring this work outside the military and make it go public, which is why he became a professor. And more than a professor, he's an entrepreneurial angel investor and so much more. Morton Hellig. So he actually was the first person to come up with the idea how to integrate VR into the film industry. So his work eventually started with Film Sensorama. So VR can be used for filming the latest movies, visual effects. So back in those days, it was pretty difficult to use VR for film, but nowadays it's starting to be more utilized. The next person is Dr. Greg Berdea. So Dr. Berdea, actually, he's a professor at Rutgers University. In fact, I was his student last semester in his virtual reality class. He's actually a pioneer in virtual rehabilitation. So virtual rehabilitation is basically VR for physical therapy. So the fancy way to put this is games being used for physical therapy patients. Patients don't want to lose motivation doing therapy. So what's the best way to engage them? Having games that they're more motivated. So his original work actually started with haptic tracking devices. So haptics is more or less touch feedback control. So imagine the way you can feel a real world objects or interaction with people. Like, for example, shaking somebody's hand. You simulate the sensation of touch from the real world. Now we want to integrate these exact same sensation into the virtual world. That's what basically haptics is, simulating what you feel into the real world, into the virtual world, exact same way. He decided, okay, why not integrate haptic tracking into virtual reality? And a lot of this work can actually be used for physical therapy needs. Eventually, him and a colleague decided, okay, why don't we create this term known as virtual rehabilitation? It's going to go big. And nowadays, it's really big. Dr. Mark Billinghurst, he actually is another one of my personal favorites. I actually, over the summer, was a part-time research assistant with his lab at the University of Auckland. Mark, you can say, he's actually very, very well known as, you can say, the father of augmented reality. In fact, he was the former PhD student of Tom Furness. So Mark's work originally started with AR Toolworks, which is now known as AR Toolkit. And AR Toolwork was more or less a vision tracking library to display augmented reality images onto the real world. So his thesis actually became commercialized that a startup known as Daiquiri acquired him for a few $1,000,000, I would say. Pretty good amount of money. And now AR Toolworks, which is now known as AR Toolkit, it's available to the whole public. So those of you who are Unity developers that are really interested in using this sort of work into your projects, I would definitely say, by all means, go for it. All right, so now we have different types of VR AR headsets. So these are all actually VR AR headsets we've probably seen. They're all in the market. So one of the first ones that I'm going to talk about is HoloLens. HoloLens is a very immersive, very powerful headset, very good resolutions, displays holographic images onto the real world through like optical displays. You can really interact with objects. It really has great interactive toolkits. Also is good for stuff like haptic controllers, hand tracking, head tracking. Degree to freedoms is more better advanced and more mature. HoloLens it's also a product developed by Microsoft. It's really one of the best headsets I can say. Another good one is also Magic Leap. So Magic Leap's actually a startup in Florida. One of their headsets is basically difference with their headset is instead of using hand controllers, they use mainly a joystick controller. So imagine that when you have the visual display in front of you, instead of actually clicking on images, you can actually just touch them through like a joystick controller. So click with a joystick. Magic Leap also is very, very good for head tracking as well. I would say degree to freedoms is also pretty good. Head tracking is good. Resolution is good, but frames per second still needs a little bit of work. Nreal is actually another popular headset. So Nreal is actually a startup. They're actually based in China. They're more or less developing more miniaturized AR headsets that are literally the size of our glasses, you can say. So Project Northstar. So what I like about Project Northstar is they didn't actually invent everything from scratch. The main thing they mainly invented from scratch is mainly the headset itself. So the optical displays, the materials for the headset. So some of these parts, if you can see, kind of looks like it was 3D printed. But in terms of hand tracking, depth sensing, and displaying actual images onto real world, they use actually existing sensors for that. So one of those sensors was a Leap Motion device for hand tracking and depth sensing. And another sensor I believe they used was Intel Real Sensing device. So these are actually augmented reality headsets. Now, some virtual reality headsets that are really popular today in the market. I'm sure we all heard about Oculus Rift and Oculus Quest. Oculus, it's a great company. It's developing really, really great latest immersive headsets. What I personally like about them is more the resolution and near field objects that you can see more clearly, the interaction. I think now Oculus also has hand tracking as well, that you don't need to rely on external sensors like a Leap Motion device. Google Cardboard. So Google Cardboard is actually a mobile VR headset developed by Google. I don't know if they're still around nowadays. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Google Cardboard. I would say the way I label that is more fake VR because mobile VR just still has so much limitation and still needs a lot of work. HTC Vive. Okay, so Vive actually, they've gone viral, I would say. One of the latest HTC Vive headsets, I believe, now can actually also do eye tracking movement and eye gazing. So imagine you're trying to you have a virtual avatar in a virtual world that you want the avatar to learn and mimic some of your movements, like facial expressions, if I'm winking my eyes or moving my eyes. Vive, actually, the latest Vive headset has support built in to do a lot of that, which is really cool because a lot of Vive headsets are now being adapted in the medical field for people with low vision rehabilitation in the eyes because the Vive is specifically being designed to really improve eye tracking and eye gazing movement. And in fact, one of the research I was working in under Mark Billinghurst that we recently published to a conference known as the International Symposium for Mixed Augmented Reality was eye gazing for interpersonal communication through brain synchronization hyperscanning. So more or less to understand more about eye gazing and how people realistically communicate in a virtual world versus a real world. So these are some of the general applications that VR AR has a big role in. I'm gonna go a little bit into brief about them. So some of the applications that you already are well familiar about. One of them, of course, is gaming. Gaming is a big application, of course, of VR AR because who doesn't love to play video games? But VR AR is not just games. In fact, games itself is not just entertainment anymore. There's a whole field we know that actually doesn't get known about. It's known as serious games, using the concept of entertainment but applying it to a real life problem. So Basically, serious games is used for real world situations such as healthcare, aerospace and defense, education, BCI, and robotics. There's many different applications being utilized for those. So, for example, in education, people in medical education, for example, they have to study so much and read books. But is there a way we can also make them like be able to get hands on at the same time they study? That's where VR AR can help with, such as learning about more anatomy and physiology of body, or for people who want to be like future surgeons. VR is very good for surgical training. That's a really big application. Another big area in education is, let's say, somebody who's not motivated to learn from books and doesn't really like to study and play games. Why not develop educational games, bring that to the VR aspect? You can make it more immersive and more interactive for them. That'll motivate them to be more productive. Aerospace and defense. So there's so many areas in defense and aerospace that use VR. I know NASA uses VR. I'm actually going to go into a little bit of a demo later through the slides about one of the projects I did for NASA that involved augmented reality displays for lunar exploration onto the moon by 2024 for astronauts who will be using a HoloLens device. Other areas in aerospace and defense I would say is really big is, of course, like mentioned, those cockpits for retinal displays. Another area, though, I would say nowadays that's really being adapted is training simulations. Training the next soldiers who are joining the military through VR, they're able to come up with scenarios that they can put a soldiers through to be able to be better prepped before actually going into war in the real world situation. Robotics, of course, that's a huge area. Like, for example, VR, AR controlled robots, or telerobotics is a fancy way to put it. Human robotic interaction. Those are really, really hot areas nowadays. Healthcare is another personal favorite of mine, especially using VR, AR for surgical interventions, rehabilitation, training, and more. Brain computer interfaces. So this is more or less a recent talk that's come up. VR AR is being combined with BCIs to be able to compute a person's neural activities based on neural input. So imagine, instead of using any game controller, imagine just think of you're in a game simulation and you think of moving the character a certain location. Well, BCI is already being used to do that. In fact, there is a startup in Boston known as Neurable. Neurable basically working on the next generation of VR, AR headsets for brain computing interfaces. They're also working on another BCI product known as N10 to help patients out with distraction issues. It's a great company. In fact, last week I was a guest speaker for them. It's it's really doing futuristic stuff. So there's so many potential applications and so many overlaps that it's so hard to pick where you want to go. So a little bit here, I'm going to show a little bit of demos of some of the games that I've worked in VR from my experiences. So I'm going to try to show a couple of them. Here is actually one of my personal favorites I like from my early days. This was actually a plane striking game I made. All right, so that was one of my games. Another game I actually made, which is a little bit more recent, was repulsor blast targets. So using a gun, you navigate in a virtual world, shoot down some targets. I'm gonna. We're not gonna watch the whole video. I'm just gonna show little samples and parts of it. Decided to make it a little bit more fancy, like Halo. So as you see, I'm able to shoot certain targets down. added a little bit more explosions and visual effects. So actually, I'm gonna a little bit do some skip throughs. So a little bit, we're just gonna skip a little bit to some of the scenes. All right, so that's pretty much most majority of the game. Well, that's mostly the simple demo of the game. If some of you are interested in more full demo, you can find them in my YouTube channel or also on my personal website. I'm happy to share some of my other projects from you that are interested. And then this is another game I made, basically Iron Man for VR using biometric system through an Arduino microcontroller and a pulse sensing device. And why just action games? Let's also show a cool demo simulation I made of a spooky town environment. So again, we're not going to go too much into the whole video just for the sake of time saving, but I'll show some main important parts of it. So this is more or less a horror simulation with scary music. I can navigate in a very empty ghost town environment, you can say. I'm just going to a little bit skip this. just skip a little bit of this. All right, so that was basically the demo of Spooky Town Simulation. Ghost Town with horror music. It's just you as a first-person character and no one else. All right, oops. Perfect. So now this is actually one educational game I actually made at actually a hackathon, I believe, by GSK. It's actually a pharmaceutical company. Actually, believe it or not, they're actually based in London, but they came to America to give some really cool hackathon with ideas that involved the theme being dental theme. So my team and I decided, why not make a game for dental patients when they come to clinics that they can play while they're waiting, and it could be more educational about how to stay hygienic for their teeth. So this is actually using Unity 3 and an augmented reality SDK known as Vuforia. So overall, the goal of this game was not just to make dental patients entertain while they're at a dental clinic, but to make them be aware and more understanding about why it's important to stay hygienic, especially for your teeth. Keep your teeth clean, brush your teeth every day. You know, these basic rules that we're taught to do, especially as kids. All right, so now I'm going to go into stuff that are more purely medical application related. So actually over here, this is a video of one of the projects I did when I was at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. It was more focused on military medicine. So imagine you were a soldier fighting in war, you were shot on the ground. What's the best way to know where the soldier exactly was shot and be able to provide accurate procedures and treatment? The goal of augmented reality in this was to use a HoloLens device that can help surgeons treat soldiers on the ground based on anatomy overlays through a holographic image and pose estimation. So I will show a little bit of a demo here. So that was the main simple project. It was mainly to test accurate overlays. Of course, a little bit project. The problem HoloLens was it lacked a little accuracy back then since it was still HoloLens 1 and not the latest HoloLens device. Um, that was one of the projects I worked on that was surgical related, but I want to get into more projects now here that are more neurological related. So this project here, X Waves, this is a project I developed at MIT Reality Hack with a couple of my team members. So one of my friends and team members there, Tushar, actually, the inspiration of this project was he saw that I was twitching a little bit and asked, "Hey, Sanjeet, do you have Tourette syndrome by any chance?" I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah, how do you know?" And he was like, "I also had Tourette's. Why don't we do something that can help people with Tourette syndrome out?" So actually, the goal of this was to develop an augmented reality environment that people with Tourette's can kind of find comfort in their own frequency sound vibration to calm the mind down. So Tourette syndrome, it's actually a neurological condition that's more anxiety and stress related. So some of the symptoms actually include vocal sound effects, twitching, spasm movements. So as you see, this is actually an environment displayed through a Magic Leap device. I'm using actually a joystick controller to control the frequency to make my brain better stimulated and more relaxed. So here you can see the difference of me with the headset on compared to me with the headset off. All right, so that's pretty much of X-Wave. Now, my other project I did actually was for my first internship from Drexel University for a spin-off startup I worked at known as Enable Games. They're basically focusing an active video game for physical therapy needs. So, how do patients play games for physical therapy? Well, they can't use a game controller because that's the old-fashioned way. So, instead of relying on traditional game controller, the way Drexel University did it was they decided, you know what? Why don't we actually make this in a way that patients can control their own movement through kinematic data through and motion tracking devices? So that's where an Xbox Connect came in. And I'm sure we've heard of Connect. It's a popular product by Microsoft. So with the Connect, instead of relying on a traditional game controller, your body itself is a controller through different motion tracking input, whether it's through your arms, leg, joint movement, hips, etc. So the goal of Drexel University is one of the research lab I work with, the Replay Labs, under a professor named Dr. Paul Diefenbach, who's professor in the Game Media Art and Production Department. His goal was translating different kinematic movement of joints into physical, raw, real-time data into movement for games. So this is actually one of my games released through a platform known as Space Quest. The goal of this game is basically collect coins and don't collide with enemy AIs. So here I'm on body profile. I can pick different hand movements, and I can also adjust parameter settings. So I'm picking my player starting speed, enemy speed. Right, it's just a main menu starting the game. So actually, just so this is actually me using my left hand. I'm able to move my ball. So the ball is the main character. And you see those spaceships, they're the AIs. So right now we set their speed to be very slow. So right now we crash with the AI. All right, so now I'm going back to my settings and I decided, you know what, why not adjust the parameter speed a little bit more for the player and enemy. So now if you see a little bit more difference, the spaceships are actually moving a little bit faster because we adjusted their speed. They're actually now going after me. They're trying to chase me down and want to, eventually get me. So simple overall goal, don't collide or let the spaceships get you. All right, so now we'll go to the next slide. Actually, we'll do this a little bit old-fashioned way. All right, so now this is actually something I did in the space domain. So this is actually one of my projects I did for NASA students. You all get to see what I did for, as I mentioned, for lunar exploration to the moon by 2024 to help astronauts out using informatics displays. This project was actually also presented to a Seattle VR meetup group along with Boston VR meetup group. I'm actually going to be doing the challenge again this year. NASA is really doing some really, really cool stuff with augmented reality. It's can't go into too much detail about it, but I'll show you a simple demo. So this is now through HoloLens 2 displays. Right, so actually you're seeing me access some of my settings for geology sampling. So one of the core components I'm actually using here is geology sampling to have a list of geological samples I would collect if I was on the moon, since that's one of the simple tasks a lot of astronauts do during lunar exploration. Other severe tasks also involve being able to have like the whole heads-up display be in local view of your environment. So that's another important feature that we're using. Another thing also involves hazardous environments such as EVA. So EVA is basically telemetry streaming, being able to track your vitals in real time. Skip a little bit of this. And another unique feature we decided to add to this was voice commands. See me reaching out to Jarvis. That's basically through voice command. See a little bit of vitals are displayed there. So I can actually also move some of the UIs around to keep him in different places. So another unique feature we decided to use was note taking, because astronauts also should be able to take notes of certain samples they explore on the moon, um, certain other observations they make on the moon that they may want to have notes on to bring back to ground station. I skip a little bit of this. All right, and then I can also save some of these features. I can also scale some of the UIs down a little bit just to make it more easier for me to see through. So a lot of this is actually being done either through interaction, gesture clicks, or voice command. And I also have a terrain set up for my map. So in case I want to be able to know where my current location is and then come up with different wayfinding techniques. And another unique feature I added was a task list. So a task list feature through display is good to help you keep good track of all the tasks you are to complete while you are on lunar exploration. So the space industry actually is very, very big in VR and AR. Space industry is super complex. In fact, there's a lot of situations involved, especially for people going outer space, and a lot of technologies you're working with. You're kind of building off of nothing. The spacesuit system is more or less the power source. You can say that's keeping astronauts alive. So if one little thing goes wrong, that can really make a difference. But there's a lot of big areas of VR and AR that's being used to change the space industry and really impact so many astronauts going to space. All right, so now neurotechnology. So I know I got it previously. I got a little bit into BCI, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about BCI into neurotech space. So neurotech is basically using brain computing technologies to understand more about person's EEG activities, how their brain functions, brain mapping, and more. This was actually a game I made at a hackathon known as NatHacks. It's a BCI focused hackathon. It's their main theme was using BCI solutions to develop um, products that can really help understand more about brain mapping, cognition, a way a person thinks. So I decided, okay, why don't we make a game known as Tetris in 3D? And a way we can understand person's mapping and thinking is how they try to stack blocks in a Tetris environment. So if it's on the ground and one LED will light up, if they stack them on top of another LED will light up. It'll kind of help understand about a person's cognition and activities and way of thinking. One of the other things we want to actually integrate was also brain flow along with the through an open BCI headset. However, unfortunately, brain flow integration didn't have much luck back then, but we were still proud of what we were able to accomplish out of the project. So I'll show a little sample video. So actually, I'm not using any motion tracking for this. I'm just using some stuff to set up parameters for speed of the block, of how fast it's falling, and have more control over it. So you see one of the LEDs lit up when it came on the ground. Another LED lit up when I stacked it on top. Right, so that was basically Neuro Tetris. That's many of you, I'm sure, mainly play Tetris in 2D. The goal is why not have it in 3D? And one of the other things we wish we got more time for was to actually integrate a little bit of VR into that. Fortunately, we didn't really get to do it so much in a headset, but the Arduino component was really something unique to us. All right, so now I'm going to talk about where the future is headed, especially with VR AR. So I'm sure a lot of us we've seen Star Trek, Star Wars, Iron Man, Avengers, a lot of good sci-fi films. Well, the way I'm looking at it is a lot of stuff we've had about sci-fi fantasy, it's actually already been coming to reality. In fact, for a long time. And there's a fancy word for this. the direction we are headed to is known as the metaverse. So the metaverse, a metaverse is more like a term that you use in sci-fi films, movies, shows. It's basically, you can say, a virtual world with artificial life. So it's like a cyberspace. You are in a cyberspace world. It's like a new world, a new dimension, where users can interact in a simulation with actual virtual agents, like virtual agents that have very powerful AI, like AI that can think the same way human perception is. So imagine you were in a virtual world and through a VR headset. It's not that it's not only your first person view at this point, it's like digitizing your whole body and replicating it into a virtual world. So imagine you're in a virtual game pod. Your mind is knocked out. Your actual brain and sensation is connected all the way through a nervous system, and it's actually being transmitted to a virtual world. So you're actually going to cyberspace. You're interacting with actual virtual agents that aren't real. We call them virtual humans. Virtual humans that can think like actual people in the real world. So people who are really, if you're really into stuff like virtual augmented reality, robotics, and BCIs, this is the whole universe we're headed into, known as the metaverse. All right, so now actually in this session, we're going to actually go a little bit hands-on too. So don't worry if you don't have Unity installed. Since this is being recorded, you can always rewatch and, try to get familiar with Unity. My goal is I want to give you all the chance to actually get more hands-on exposure to developing Unity with augmented reality solutions. So one of the toolkits I'm going to go into here is Mixed Reality Toolkit, or MRTK. So MRTK is actually, it was designed by Microsoft. Microsoft designed this library. It's basically meant to help XR developers save times on their projects for whatever they're trying to integrate with this technology. So some of the components MRTK contains are interaction, UI, and tools for rapid prototyping and really making more immersive user interface technologies. So this is very cross-platform. It supports Android devices, iOS devices, HoloLens technology, Oculus, Magic Leap, Unreal, and more. So game engines that actually use MRTK are actually Unity and Unreal. So in here, we will be mainly focusing with Unity 3D. So don't even worry if you don't have any Unity or C# experiences. That's not needed at all. This is very beginner-friendly stuff. All right, so here's a little bit about installation guide with Unity. So those of you who have never worked with Unity, you can always download this from Unity. You can always Google up Unity Hub. It'll be like the first link. Google up Unity Hub. You can download Unity Hub, create a Unity account. So the latest Unity version out there right now is 2021.1.24 F1. The latest version will come to Unity Hub. So if you look at the right images, so this is Unity Hub. You'll actually have to sign in or create an account. It's free, especially if you're doing personal development. And then over here, there's an add button. You'll click add. You'll look for the latest Unity version. So don't go for the LTS versions. You want to go for the official releases, whatever is the latest version out there. All right, so actually I can show a little bit of that. Actually here. Let's see, where's Unity Hub? Perfect. Okay, so imagine if I was downloading Unity Hub, I can actually go to add here. I can look for the latest version. All I do is click next. And basically that's where the whole configuration setups are. Then you'd be good to go from there. So for those of us who don't have headsets, you don't have to worry because we're mainly going to be learning how to develop for mobile platforms since MRTK is very, very friendly for that. However, for people who are iOS users, I will have to warn you, if you develop for iPhone, you will need a MacBook to build on iOS platform along with Xcode installed. Sadly, Apple just makes their platform restricted just to Apple. It's just the way it is because they're Apple. For people who are Android users, you will have to have Android Studio installed before you can develop with Unity, and make sure the API level minimum is set to 24. So you'll set that up to 24 in Unity, and then there's another option where they ask for the latest version of API levels. So make sure whatever the latest is, you have that set to latest. But first, when you configure Android Studio, you'll have to have different SDKs and components installed. That's all stuff you can Google up on your own time. But yeah, once you click install, you'll go to next. You'll see add Unity under add Unity version. You'll see the component you want to select. So for those who are Android developers, do have Android build support checked with the options underneath: Android SDK and NDK tools and OpenJDK. For people who are iOS developers, do have iOS build support checked. And then you want to make sure Universal Windows Platform build support is also checked, along with Windows build support, since Mrtk is a Windows platform. So you want to make sure those components are also selected. All right, so now I'm going to go to create new here. All right, so this is right after you have already Unity set up. It's all good to go. So you basically, what would happen is you would then go to, once you have your Unity set up and installed, you would just go to new over here. Okay. You can pick whatever location directory you're comfortable with. Project name, I named mine Mrtk. You can come up with whatever name you want. And then you have different template options here. I would say if you're doing 3D development, always check 3D. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I actually already have mine opened up. So once you create the project from Unity Hub, then your Unity will take time to load up. So this is actually how the original Unity scene and layout will look. So I already have my Unity open. So this is how it's going to look. So I'm going to actually go to Windows here, Layouts. I'm going to set it to default purposely. So this is how originally it will open. However, you're better off setting your layout to 2x3. So I'm just setting mine to 2x3 here. The reason I always do 2x3 is because, one, on top of here, this is the scene. This is a scene where I can kind of come up with layouts, design for my object. I can kind of set up my environment the way I want to set up. Underneath here, this is the output. This is how my whole environment looks based on camera view. All right. So I kind of already did some of the setups because Unity takes a lot of time on doing setups, and I'm not going to go through all that time and hecticness with Unity because Unity, like I said, it's a powerful, very powerful 3D game engine. You can do a lot of stuff with Unity. That's really the way to go. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about a package manager. So if you're going to be developing with Mrtk, there are going to be pre-existing packages you're going to need to install. So actually, I'm going to go to Windows here, go to Package Manager. It's just taking time to fetch some of the packages. All right. So some of the packages you mainly want to install is AR Foundation, AR Core XR plugin, and AR Kit XR plugin. So actually, since you see the check mark here, the green check means everything's already installed. So I had mine previously pre-installed because, again, it takes a lot of time to install stuff. Unity is a very, very time-consuming engine, and it takes a lot of time to really update and refresh everything. But overall, you would just click the package you want to install, click install here. Everything will automatically get installed. All right. So once you have that, now you want to look underneath your packages folder. All right. So under your packages folder, if everything was successful in installing, the files will show up. So AR Foundations here shows up, AR Core XR plugin shows up, AR Kit XR plugin shows up. So the difference between AR Core and AR Kit is AR Core is Android, AR Kit is iPhone, but you're going to need both of them installed anyways, even if you're developing for Android or iOS, because Mrtk just relies on those plugins. It's just the way it is. All right. So now Mrtk. So actually, you can actually find Mrtk just by Googling it up. So we're basically, the latest version of Mrtk out there is 2.7.2. That's the version I'm going to be going in through this tutorial. So Actually, I'll show a little bit of a demo. If I just Google, well, not demo, if I Google up Mrtk, just Google up, it'll be the first link here. So first link here, and then you go into releases. So the main packages we are going to install, I'm going to get into right now. So the installation packages you should have is Microsoft.mixedreality.toolkit.unity.examples 2.72. You should also have the extensions, the foundations, and tools. So these are the 4 main packages you need installed. So I already have mine in my download directory here. It's all set up here. So Mrtk for me is good to go because importing it will take a little bit of your time. So there's 2 ways you can import. So one way I can do it, I can just go directly to assets, import new package, and click on custom package. So I can just click on one package at a time here. Then basically what's going to happen is once I click import, this is the options I will get. So once you click on the package on import, you'll get this pop-up saying import Unity package. You click import, and you do this exact same thing for all 4 packages. So you're going to do the same thing for all 4 of them. Once you do that, once everything's successfully imported, then you're going to have this option show up. It's going to be a pop-up known as Mrtk project configurator. So what you're going to do here is you're going to click Unity Open XR plugin. So that's mainly just for setting up some of the extra configurations. So it's going to take a little bit of time to load up. So once you click Unity Open XR plugin, it's going to take a little bit of time, and then it's going to give you a warning message. So this warning message is just saying you're going to be using a new system in your package. Just click yes to that. Once you click yes, Unity will automatically restart and refresh because it's updating itself with like some of your latest SDKs and tools you've integrated. It's a very normal procedure. Unity will automatically restart. It might take 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more, depending how fast your computer is, but it will take a little bit of time. So yeah, this is what's going to happen. This is how it will look like. Your Unity will re-import everything. And then after that, you'll have another pop-up menu. You're going to click Show XR Plugin Management Settings. So for those who are iOS users, you're probably going to have to do a little bit differently. But for Android people, I'll tell you how you can do it. So first of all, you're going to click on the Android logo here. So actually, I can actually show that from my end too. Another way you can do is also go to your player settings. So go to File, Build Settings. I'll be going a little bit in that a couple slides later, but what you can do is, if you see here, there's different options. Make sure you check the Android logo. All right. So next to Android logo, you want to check AR Core. Just check that. So Unity is confirmed that you'll be built using some AR Core plugins for Android. All right. And now after that, then you can click for next steps. You can click skip this step, and then to the right side, this is how your images, this is the next pop-up you'll get. So click apply. Once you click apply, your Unity will restart again. It just might take a little bit, few more minutes, depending again how fast your computer is, but that's okay. Once the Unity reopens, this is what everything will look like. So you'll get a pop-up showing up again. You will click next, and then your next pop-up will be giving you an option to import TMP essentials. So you want to import those because some of the text that Mrtk uses is TMP essentials. So it's just the way it's designed. Just import it. That part won't take too long. Once you click import, you'll be good to go. You can just click done after that, and then you're good to go with Mrtk. All right. So now, next thing is we're going to talk a little about building for platforms. So as I mentioned to you all, I'm going to be covering more about how to build for Android platform. Like I said, for iOS, it might be a little bit different. Again, I'm not an iOS developer. I'm mainly an Android developer here, but that's fine. I'm sure it's similar procedures involved. So what you have to do is before you even build to an Android or iOS platform, you got to go to your build settings. So build settings is in File, build settings here. So what's going to happen is, by default, since this is a new project for you all here, your default platform will be set to PC, Mac, and Linux. So what you want to do is click on the Android logo under platforms. You click on here, and then you'll have an option to switch platforms. So mine is actually already set up. So because again, switching platform, Unity will take a lot of time. It takes a ton of time. So you will switch platform. After your platform is switched to Android, you'll have your Unity logo next to Android. Then what you do is you click on Add Open Scene. The reason you click on Add Open Scene is because when you're going to be building a file from Unity onto another platform, could be your own Windows platform or Android or whatever, Unity needs to know which scenes to build. Otherwise, if you just do it without adding scenes, it's not going to build. It's just not. All right. So just a little warning, because now you're switching to Android platform, you might have Mrtk pop-up configuration show up again, but you just repeat the procedures and you'll still be good to go. All right. So now this is the next thing we're going to do. So we're now now that your platform is set up, you're going to be going back into player settings next to your Android icon. All right. So make sure you have where it says minimum API level, make sure that's set to 24. Target API level, just keep it set to automatic, highest installed. So that will automatically detect the highest one you have installed on your computer. Even if you don't have installed, but it's the latest version, Unity will take care of that for you. So it saves you time on that. Another thing you want to really do is you want to go under graphics API. So I'm going to show you a little option here on the right screen. Under graphic APIs, which is still under player settings, you want to delete Vulkan. The reason you want to delete Vulkan is because for mobile platform, since you're using AirCore depends on its own graphics tools. So you want to delete Vulkan, which takes a little bit of time. So this is how you would generally do it. I already deleted Vulkan from my end because, again, time saving. I would just click under graphic API. So pretend this is Vulkan. You would just click that, and then you would just click the minus button over here. That's all you would do. That minus button is just to delete stuff. All right, and then once Vulkan is deleted, you should be fine from there. And now you're going to be setting up Mrtk camera. So actually, Unity comes with a default main camera. So what you would do is left click on the main camera under hierarchy, under sample scenes, and then you would right click on your main camera and then just click delete. After you do that, what you would do is then you would just go under mixed reality, click on Toolkit, add to scene and configure. That will automatically configure Unity with Mrtk's own camera. So you will have a mixed reality toolkit component here, and then mixed reality a play space that has its own main camera set up with Unity. And then another thing that'll also pop up is mixed reality scene content. Those are just default sources that will come with Mrtk once you have that set up. And then once you have that, then you can go to next steps. So now this actually we're going to do together. So I'm going to guide you all through this process. Again, don't worry if you don't have a Unity or computer, anything open in front of you. You can always rewatch this. So we're going to do Mrtk build configuration. So actually what's going to happen is I'm going to click on mixed reality toolkit here. What I want to do is I want to set up my toolkit. So right now everything's set by default. We want to build on Android, so we need to configure that to the mixed reality toolkit components. So first of all, I'm going to click on clone over here. So we're going to next to experience settings, we're going to go to clone, and then we're going to go next to profile name, and we're going to rename it. So you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it mobile mixed reality toolkit configuration. All right. So once you have that, make sure that's set to that. All right. And then the next step is you want to click on the camera component. So on the right side, So we're doing the same procedure here. Clone. All right, and let me expand this a little bit. Okay, perfect. I'm going to click clone here, and then same thing. Mobile mixed reality camera profile. Yep, so you clone that. And now your next options will be, all right, let's double check. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to look for camera setting providers to the right. So right side, actually, what we're going to do is, I already expanded mine. So just expand camera setting providers and delete open XR camera settings. But so you just click the minus button to delete it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add our own. So you're going to get a new data provider 1. That's just a default name. You're going to change that. So you're going to click on Microsoft.mixedreality.toolkit.experimental.unity.ar, Unity AR camera settings. All right, perfect. So that's basically what it should look like. So that's what you should have. Once you have that, you're pretty much all good to go from here. All right, so now what you can do is a simple build. I've already actually done this simple build because I've been working with Mrtk for a couple of months now, so I've been doing some side projects with it. But one of the things you're going to now do is you're going to click on Mixed Reality, go to Toolkit, Utilities, Unity AR, and click on Update Scripting Defines. So why do we do that? Well, you want your app to show up, your Mrtk app to show up on your phone without a dark screen. Because right now, if you look here, the screen is all dark. You want your actual real world scene to come. You don't want anything to be dark. So where our goal is, we want to integrate Mrtk onto real world settings for mobile platforms. So that's the reason we do that. So now what you would just do generally is just you connect your phone to your computer, and then you would go to File, Build Settings, and basically you would just click Build and Run. Unity is still a little bit setting up, but that's fine. We don't need to worry about that. And if all goes well, this is what everything should look like. So you will actually just have a toggle profiler along with your real world overlaying scene. So if this is what you get with a simple build, then that means you're good to go. But we're not stopping here. Now we can actually start adding some interactable features. All right, so what I'm going to do is there's a search bar. We're just going to look for the hand interaction example. So a search bar under projects, we'll just go to hand interaction example. Oops. See why it's doing that. Oh, I know why. Okay, so we don't have that. That's strange. Again. All right, you know what? That's fine. I can always open up one of my previous projects. That was just to walk you through it, but I'll show it with another separate project of mine I've done. Actually, I'll just open it to Unity Hub. Sometimes Unity has those minor issues. I wouldn't worry too much about those, but okay, perfect. Well, that takes time to open up. What basically you would do is you would just go to hand interaction example. You would drag that scene under your hierarchy. So once Unity opens up, I'll show us how to do that. All right, so what will happen is you're just going to look for the mixed reality scene context under hand interaction example. What you would just do is, so that mixed reality scene context underneath hand interaction example, that actually contains all the components of different objects you will be interacting with. So once Unity is done opening up, I will actually show us that example. Might take to mention, okay, actually it's not going to take that much time for me because I probably opened up before, but that's fine. So anyways, this procedure is once you just drag that mixed reality toolkit, mixed reality scene context underneath hand interaction examples to sample scene. So you just drag it there. Once you do that, you can just right click on hand interaction example scene. So as I click, as you see in the right image here, you can just right click and click remove scene, but you will get a pop-up that will show if you want to save or not. Just click don't save because you don't want to overwrite any changes with Unity because Unity just, Unity does weird stuff sometimes when you do that. But that's fine. Just don't override it. And then what should happen is this is how your new sample scene should look. So now what you can do is you can actually rebuild. So connect your phone to your computer, file, build settings, build and run. This is what it exactly should look like. So this will be your final build output. All right, so you see me interacting a little bit with different MRTK objects. This is all through my phone. Yep, so that's actually an RGB scroll bar, so I can actually change the color of that object. I can also interact with piano. So actually, I'm able to drop objects from like the table there onto my real world environment, but actually, it doesn't actually fall on my bed. It actually just disappears. Let's see. Oh, I think Unity loaded up. Okay, actually, so let's just finish up the video. All right, so that's overall how it should look. But now back to example, what you would do is search for hand interaction example. You would generally just drag and drop this here. This is what you would search for. You would generally just bring this up here. Remove scene, don't save. Since I already did mine like that, I don't have to do it again. But that's how your overall scene will then look. And then you would just go to build settings, connect your phone, build and run, and your output will look like what I showed you in the video just now. So that's overall what you should have. And then I know for this, you didn't have to do any coding at all, but now if you have any previous projects you did coding with, integrate Mrtk with it, and then write some of your own scripts that you can interface with Mrtk. So the easiest way you can write C# scripts with Unity is just create a folder. First of all, create a scripts folder. Create a C# script. So you would just right click C# script. You can call it whatever you want. Let's call it hello. And then from here, once you open that up, just write simple C# or whatever you're trying to do with Mrtk. In terms of it could be interactions, could be UI, could be a game, could be anything. So yeah, I mean, not going to go too much into coding right now about it, but yeah, that's just an example for any of you who are really interested in learning more about augmented reality development and really want to explore Mrtk. Because my goal is I want you to get something out of this development because Mrtk, it's really the future and a lot of opportunities out there with Unity, VR, AR, and there's so many tools, there's so many technologies out there to learn from. All right, and then there's actually other Unity resources as well for those of you who will, after hopefully today's session, if you're interested in learning Unity, there's so many other tutorials you can watch from. One is learn.unity.com/tutorials. There's very beginner friendly level courses and intermediate level courses. You can take whichever one you want to start with, whether it's 2D game development, 3D game development, VR, AR, Unity ML agents, which is machine learning agents for those of you that might be machine learning engineers. It's really it's a very beginner friendly tool, very good for prototyping, and it's super easy to pick up. And from here, I like to thank you all for listening.
Hey, thank you, Sanchit. There's one question in the comment. Someone want to know that what is job opportunities in this domain?
Oh, there's a lot of job opportunities in this domain. In fact, Unity game engine, you can land so many jobs. It's not just in game industries. You can land jobs in healthcare industries. I know healthcare, they're using VR, AR to develop solutions to help doctors on tasks, like, surgical procedures. Another thing they're using it for, I remember back when I was at Cornell University, we were working on interventional cardiology for like catheter approximation and detection using augmented reality images. That's like one area you can land jobs in. You can also land jobs in other areas like military and defense. There's so many jobs in that. Virtual humans, visual effects. It really depends on the company, but there's a lot of applications and domains.
Okay, got it. I think you well explained the question. Thanks a lot for such an interactive session. Thank you for hands-on and covering so many domains. If I talk about myself, I'm also a fan of AR VR, and I'm aiming to build my own virtual world and, of course, rent it to others.
There's definitely, if you're into virtual world, use Oculus or whatever headset you like. There's like Mrtk. If you have any VR headset, you can integrate that into that project of yours too.
Yeah, I see a lot of scope in virtual world because you can build anything. You just have to dream and then you have to build it. There is no limitation.
Exactly.
That's the best thing about VR. And I consider it's a like for the future, it's a great investment. You
Right.
can build your space, then you can. I hope in the future time, just like people right now buy some investment, then they buy some land, so people will be interested in buying virtual spaces. So that's what I'm hoping.
Exactly. I think there are some real estate companies that are utilizing VR for that as well. So that's another domain to look into.
Yeah. So let's see what happens in the future. Thank you for your time, Sanchit. It was a
Thank
great
you.
session.
Right.